been very impressive in his first NBA season. He's a front runner to win Rookie of the Year, averaging 15.8 points, 6 rebounds, and 6.3 assists per game. And Michael Jordan is happy with what he's seen. He said, I think Melo has adjusted to the NBA game better than any of us ever thought this early in his career. He has exceeded our expectations so far this season.
I totally agree. I didn't think he would be this offensively stimulating. He's really a nice player.
I love that he didn't go the normal route. He did not go the normal route at all. He played in the JBA league. He passed on college to go play overseas. His dad is extremely outspoken and was speaking extremely high of his son, as he always does. I'm a big fan of the Ball family, but he's backing it up. And I'm all for someone breaking the norm and doing something that fits you, that you think is going to make you the best player that you can be. And we've seen the Ball family come out and do that. LeVar has raised
I was thinking about this.
Children.
He doesn't play much defense. Luka doesn't play much defense. Zion doesn't play much defense. Trae Young doesn't play much defense. Is that when kids used to have high school coaches that demanded they play defense, and then they went to college for 3 years, and Dean Smith demanded you play defense. Players were better early defensively in the NBA. Now, kids go to the AAU route. They stay in college a year. So they come into the NBA. There's a lot of bad defensive players in the NBA as the league has gotten younger. And this is not a knock on LaMelo Ball. But Zion can't play defense. Luka doesn't. LaMelo doesn't. Trae Young doesn't. The league's become worse defensively. Now, the athletes are better, but you don't have that high school coach barking at you for 3 and 4 years to play defense. You don't have that college coach barking at you to play defense. It's AAU basketball, 1 year of college, and you're out. The plane has landed, refueled, and is off to the NBA. And so I think what it's doing, it's gassing these offensive numbers a little bit, where, I mean, just everybody feels like they're scoring. These young players, first of all, the hand check's gone. The forearm in the back is gone, so the league's gotten more finesse over the last 7 or 8 years. And I just think it's an easier league for young guys to come in and score and not get pushed around like 10 years. Generationally, the game has changed.
It has.
Okay. Alex for the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
I did think it was interesting. So LeBron and Kevin Durant picked the All-Star teams last night. Chris Broussard and I did it. They look, and Broussard's ended up looking like an Eastern Conference All-Star team, and mine ended up looking like a Western Conference All-Star team. But so what happened is Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell were the last 2 guys to get picked, right? And so Utah, it felt like, man, LeBron and KD are crushing Utah, and LeBron joked about it.
You guys got to understand, just like in video games growing up, we never played with Utah. Even as great as Karl Malone and John Stockton was, we would have never picked those guys in video games. Never.
It's actually kind of funny. Utah's interesting. They're 27-9, one of the best home court advantages in the league, number 1 NBA record. They have 2 All-Stars, and they're terrific against top teams. They're 15-7. And yet nobody gives them a shot to win the title. I watch a lot of Utah games because I go to Utah a lot to ski, and they're always on. It's interesting. Regular seasons in the NBA are a treadmill, and postseasons are an obstacle course because you play the same team over and over and over and over again. And let's be honest, the last 9 finals MVPs are LeBron and the guy that guarded him, and then Kawhi Leonard. That's kind of what the MVP is. And Utah has a LeBron problem. They do not have anybody on the wing to defend him. So they're not beating LeBron James 4 times in 2 weeks. So they are the classic built for the regular season, not to win a championship. By the way, it's not slander. I'll give you another. Baltimore Ravens are starting to get that reputation. They don't play the same football playing from behind. But in the playoffs, you play the best teams, you're often playing from behind. You have to overcome that. Derrick Rose's Bulls, great energy, very explosive. But if you played them over and over and over, they weren't a great shooting team, and they would unravel. The Milwaukee Bucks, great regular season team. But in the playoffs, it's situational basketball. You got to be good in the last 2.5, 3 minutes. And their best player, Giannis, is kind of a liability shooting it at the free throw line in the last 3 minutes. So there are these teams in sports. The Phoenix Suns with Steve Nash. They couldn't really defend the interior. But when they waltz into town, you don't get a ton of practice time or game film. They bring this blizzard of offense, and you can't keep up. And Utah's got a bunch of depth and a bunch of three-point shooters, and they walk into town, and if you don't, in a condensed NBA schedule, they're hard to prepare for. Same coach, same players, multiple years. They know their stuff. But if you got to play them 7 times or 6 times in 2 weeks, they've got certain holes, and that hole is they're not great at defending a wing, a Kawhi, a LeBron James. They could struggle with that. But they're a really good basketball team, and I just kind of laughed at LeBron's reasoning. I would have never in a million years guessed that was the reasoning, but I thought it was funny.
When called upon, it all starts with great preparation, and I am ready to go. So he mentioned preparation.
Yes.
I want to know if he adjusts his off-season preparation, because he hasn't aged great. He hasn't aged bad, but he hasn't aged Tom Brady great, and we know what that takes.
Well, I think a lot of times, like Drew Brees and Tom Brady are probably not as naturally gifted as Big Ben, size, arm strength.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy when you have such great natural size and gifts to not take it for granted. But I mean, Breeze was always smaller. Tom was not built.
Yeah.
So they have that kind of, they have that underdog feel to them. And I do think when you are talented like Cam or the size of Cam or Big Ben, you know, it's listen, what happens in sports, a lot of people are kind of talented and work their butt off to be really good.
Yeah.
Some people are super talented but don't work hard enough to be great. The rare combination is Peyton Manning, who had great physical tools and was a workaholic. That's Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
That's Michael Jordan. It's very rare when you get, oh, this is a great athlete. Oh, and he works like an underdog. I think the criticism of Ben I've heard is he is a great natural talent, not always the most committed, and I think that's very common among all walks of life. This is not an outrageous claim. I think it's been reported. Jay Glazer jokes, you know, his off-season workouts, a yoga class, and a beer. But I do think his press release there is the way he should have handled it. So I think he handled it perfectly.
He did, but that's what separates greats from the GOATs.
Right.
Is that in between. Like, you have that natural gifted talent, but are you going to go that extra mile to have a great diet, have the great trainers, take care of your body? Because when you age, and if you're that size, it's going to be harder on your body. Yeah. Even just working out. Football's a hard sport.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that'll be interesting. I'm curious to see what this offseason preparation might be. But now we're moving over to Russell Wilson, because tensions remain high between Russ and the Seahawks. He says he wants to stay in Seattle, but his agent revealed he would accept a trade to Chicago, Las Vegas, Dallas, or New Orleans. And the latest report is that while the Seahawks are not shopping their franchise quarterback, they are answering any calls from other teams about him. And I think this makes it very clear that Pete Carroll is in charge. He's going to get what he wants. And if Russ doesn't want to get in line and continue to do what he's done in years past, then they're going to give him what he wants. Well, they're going to let him go.
TJ Hushmanzada said something yesterday on the show, and he played in Seattle for a year. He said, listen, Earl Thomas got outspoken. Pete got him out of town. Richard Sherman got outspoken. Pete got him out of town. Pete has a belief system. He believes there's a way to play football, and Pete's the head coach, and he's been given rare unlimited power inside the organization, like Belichick and Gruden power, and he's going to use it. So I think Pete's also smart enough to know it's really hard to replace Russell Wilson. It's virtually impossible. I mean, it is impossible unless you had like Trevor Lawrence in that pick, because the really great quarterbacks right now are not on the market. It's more Darnold. It's more Mariota. I do think Las Vegas, the Raiders, is the one place that Pete could engineer a trade and sleep on it. If he could give him Derek Carr and Darren Waller and maybe a first pick and say, okay, I've got a good quarterback, I've got a top tight end, and you gave me a couple picks, I think you could digest that for a couple years. And then the Raiders, I don't think that's great for Russell Wilson, by the way. I don't think that's a great place for him. And Russell has a no trade clause, so
Yeah.
but Russell did mention the Raiders as one of his 4 teams. I do think of all the teams mentioned, Gruden and the Raiders, Gruden also has power, so he can okay any deal.
Yeah.
Which in a lot of these instances, the coach may like Russell, but the GM's not going to make the move.
Yeah. Would the personality work, Russ and Gruden? Could you see that working?
Yeah, I mean, they're both kind of stars. They've got a
Yeah.
star power about them. Again, I don't think it's the best place for Russell,
No.
but that's the one place. If you gave me Derek Carr, Darren Waller,
Yeah.
and a couple of a first-round pick and a second-round pick, I don't think I'd get equal value, but I think I'd get really good value. I'd probably want 2 firsts, Derek Carr and Darren Waller. That's about. I think that's about as you're getting a capable Pro Bowl quarterback. You're getting a great Hall of Fame level tight end and 2 firsts. That's about as good as you can get, I think. I'd rather have Darren Waller than another first-round pick. I'd rather have a certainty because Seattle's first-round picks have been hit and miss.
I know we talked about this yesterday. I still think it's strange and weird that the Seahawks have not put out a statement because when you don't, as you mentioned, everyone else is filling in the blanks. Just give us something.